Good morning. Welcome to my morning outlook. And firstly, let's look at what's happening today in terms of news, because it's quite key. As I mentioned, there's two banks. Then we've got the Bank of England meeting finishing up today, and then we've got the ECB meeting later on. So at midday, we will find out what's in store for us from the Bank of England. Expectations then is a quarter percent increase to 0.5%. That's the expectation there. Whether that will actually happen is another matter, but that's the expectation. And when I say whether that will happen, there are some questions over heating costs, etc. What's driving the inflation at the moment, and I do wonder if they'll take into account the fact that the consumer is already getting hit. So whether they'll actually put rates up so quickly, just in the back of my mind, might be wrong, but they've surprised us before. However, that's what's forecast in there for the Bank of England. I think it's the more long-term view that people will be looking for, but it is priced into the market already. So a negative result or a no increase would see the pound being sold potentially, and even coming in as expected. If it's amongst dovish sort of content, that also could see the pound being sold. It would have to be a much more aggressive hawkish statement that comes out, which gets the market pushing upwards. For the ECB meeting, then we will see. The other thing, we've got the Bank of England governor speaking at 12:30, so that'll be an important thing there for the Bank of England. Sorry, back to the ECB then. We'll see the statement coming out at 12:45, and then the usual press conference at 1:30. Now, it would appear that they're almost being pushed along, and I think they've done their best not to backpedal as much as possible and be as dovish as possible. Inflation came out earlier this week showing the highest for many years. And the first time that the rate came in, and actually it was a record change to what was expected. So the actual was a long way away from forecast. That's what I'm trying to say. Either way, we'll see what's happening there, because at the moment it's expected that there will be no change, and it will continue with the main refinancing rate at zero. As I say, it'll be an interesting one. There may be some expectations that they'll at least give forward guidance within the statement, etc., or maybe later in the press conference in terms of what the Eurozone doing. Again, with some people thinking, well, they may get a little bit more hawkish. Again, there may be this sort of built into the markets, and we've seen the euro pushing up recently on that. I say on that basis, but the euro pushing up on a short squeeze or whatever it's called, but it's holding. So we'll see what comes from there. There is the potential for a drop again, unless they become hawkish. So there you go. There's the key data coming out. We've then got the ISM Services PMI coming out at 3 p.m. So a busyish day, from midday onwards. Okay. Let's look at the markets then. Look at the technicals first, and we'll look at currencies as usual, starting off with the euro dollar. And well, there you go. It's, as I said, been pushing up as before. A little bit off this morning, drifting back a little bit. Whether we'll see more of this drift, well, who knows? These markets they seem to be taking their own route at this stage. One thing I can say is the retail market is they've basically closed all their longs that they'd built up over the last God knows how long, and how much pain that's taken them, but they're out of. I mean, it's a 50-50 on the retail sector roughly. So it's really left down to the big money at the moment. Well, lower highs just working their way through this shorter time frame, but it's for me it's a wait and see. There are some sort of, with the way this has been pushing up, a trend line across the highs here, breakout of that back up to yesterday's highs would make some sense in normal circumstances when you're waiting for an interest rate increase. So we could just see it flop and flop and flop. I believe they've both been the dollar's been sold unfairly almost. Anyway, it's squeezed those longs, hasn't it? Squeezed the shorts in the other currencies, squeezed the longs in the for the dollar longs. Anyway, the pound dollar then. Again, correcting a little bit this morning, but another solid day yesterday. A little bit slower in terms of the smaller movement, but still solid. We're seeing it roll a little bit more at the moment. Again, this could just turn into a little bull flag and off it goes. It's a hard one. The other thing to be looking at is if it starts breaking below the 200 to 21, well, maybe that's a bit more as a signal that it's softened. That will also be below the monthly pivot, and we could see a bigger correction there. As I said, it's often sell on the news. I just wonder it'll roll over, but who knows? A bit of a hawkish outlook and etc. Could see it push up once again, and maybe then fall. Dolly Yen. Dolly Yen, well, it's in quite a mess. We can see on the dailies, you can't see it. So, I mean, in terms of a range, it is a slightly rising range. When we look at the weeklies, you can see it's a rising range. Again, here, well, it's had a good time. It's been a safety currency. It's been everything, and we've seen money flowing into it earlier. But for now, it's retreating a little bit. The dollar's pushing up here. It's a bit stronger at this stage. Bit of a mess where it sits at this stage. Again, though, a trend line across the lows there. Anything breaking below that could see it running down to its daily S1. Reasonable probability of that being hit if it does start rolling over. But for now, I say with all these markets, you're so much better off being patient and waiting for the data to come out. We could second guess, and we might get into a decent trade from the technicals that are showing up beforehand, but the news could just wipe everything. We're just making out quite quickly, but that's the risk of going in early. Aussie dollar again, same story here, pushing up solidly until yesterday. Yesterday a bit softer, and it didn't push up quite so well. It's consolidating around these highs again. Generally, when it's consolidating around the highs, you'd put a trend line across the top there and expect it to be pushing up further. But at this stage, just the data that came out yesterday was weaker than people expected. It's a bit of a dovish sort of comment, although they might increase rates this year. That was the sort of the statement there. But again, this is really largely held up, I think, by dollar selling as opposed to Australian dollar buying, US dollar selling, that be. Okay, Aussie, Canadian dollar finally. Same sort of picture here. The Canadian dollar almost deserves to do better. We've had record high price, 7-year highs on the oil price, etc. Yet Canadian dollar, it's just sluggish. Even this retracement down here, it's been so sluggish. I think if the dollar started to rally, the Canadian dollar could be beaten up once again. It just hasn't moved to the same extent in percentage terms as we've seen through the other markets. Yeah, I was looking at something yesterday, and it just seems to be doesn't really want to gain. It's going with the US dollar more than anything else, maybe. But either way, it's double bottomed here, arguably. As I say, for me, it looks like there's still potential to the upside. Okay, let's have a look at the commodities. Gold first. Oops, gone out a little bit further with a weekly one. Well, we're in a bear flag on here. It's run into the back into the monthly pivot. It's reacting to that monthly pivot at the moment. You can see, there we go. It's sort of double tops into the monthly pivot and minor divergences across there. Maybe if I put the MACD on, is there anything clearer? Not really. It's still showing it positive there. High lows, high highs, to be fair, largely through the picture at the moment. And yes, it could be seen as a safety area later, so it might gain from that. But I'm really looking at the bigger picture here and thinking, is it going to break down through this trend line at some stage? It's just, to say, struggling at this stage. So there you go. That's gold, oil. Okay, so oil. Yeah, so they were the new highs. Yes, yet again yesterday, held back a little bit and consolidated. Um, it's consolidated where it is. I wouldn't want to be betting against oil. It's not necessarily giving us the, I'll just come down to the hourlies here, not really always giving us the moves that we would like to see. I mean, it did run off pretty well yesterday. We're sort of looking at it. The risk reward wasn't great at the time in terms of targets, and well, it moved, but the risk was right. I mean, it wasn't even 1-to-1 yesterday when we looked at this. And I mean, it did overshoot the potential target, but either way, wasn't great. Might see a similar picture again. It is just gradually moving and putting higher lows in and higher highs in. It's a funny old one to be trading, and as I said, the afternoons certainly seem to get the driver. It was agreed yesterday, OPEC met, and it was agreed that they would increase production by 400,000 barrels a day. So 400 million barrels per day. Yes, 400,000. Just a drop in the ocean. Right, let's look at. Whoops, I should get a chart behind here. There we go. Let's look at the cryptos. Actually, before then, it's just interest rates. Dollar index. Would you expect it to bounce back to 97? Well, the dollar index is inverted euro effectively. I'll take that question first. Actually, see if I can bring it back up. Oops. Dollar index. We'll bring the dollar index. Would I expect it? I don't. I still think the dollar's pretty a pretty strong currency here compared to what's going on elsewhere. Okay, there was a much more dovish outlook recently by a number of the members. All of a sudden, it seems to be they're getting a bit worried that they've been a bit too hawkish, maybe, but. I'm looking at this dollar index, and I mean it's inverted euro in a sense, and well, this could be. I mean, it's taken a bit of a hammering on this 60 minutes. Let's get into the dailies. There we go. It's a better view of things. Do I think? I mean, it could get a bounce back up there towards the sort of 97s. Yeah, I mean, if we're seeing the euro pushing down, well, the dollar's going to be pushing up on here. It's largely built off there. I haven't seen any. I mean, you can look at what the big money's doing yourself. It's if you go on to the COP reports, you can go and see what the big money's doing. It doesn't move. Well, what I see doesn't move on a daily basis. I only get a weekly flash of what's on there on a Tuesday. So whatever I've said then sticks for the week, and that we don't see anything beyond that. So just answering that question in terms of is there any big money changes in gold? Not anything I can see until we see the data next week. At the end of this week, coming into the weekend. Okay, Bitcoin lower highs, lower lows. Continue through, obviously, looking at this on a daily basis and everything. Yesterday surprised me actually. We saw currencies pushing up against the dollar. We saw Bitcoin coming off against the dollar somewhat, so bit more disappointing from that perspective, but it is in trend, and the cryptocurrencies at the moment are all pretty much the same, in the same boat here. It's doing the same thing. For me, it's not, as I said before, I want to see a higher load coming through on any of these markets before I look at the buy side personally, but at the moment they're all just continuing to make new lows from time to time. Could be a mover today. We just don't know how much pressure we're going to see across these markets. Could be a mover with what comes out with the eurozone and most likely the eurozone. But will make the biggest potential move. But the story is the same right the way through here. So even my old favoured one that's going off the list soon, but quite soft there. Right, let's have a look at the indices. Now the indices have been doing pretty well. Let's have a look at the Nikkei 225. Well, I said that and it's sold off a little bit, but the European indices have been doing very well. This still to me looks in a sort of bearish zone, and well, didn't help with today's movement there coming off somewhat. Maybe we'll see more of that. Ooh, okay, Ftse's just open. Ftse looks like it's set up for some new highs at this rate. It's been pushing and pushing, and it's outperformed quite a few of the other markets. Just looks at this stage quite bullish. It'll be interesting to see what the Bank of England's decision later on will do. But of course, that's a quarter of percent interest rate's already been priced in. It might just be washed aside. I would imagine it will be. DAX is down this morning. It started off down. Looks like it's gapped down there this morning. Looking a little bit on the softer side. Certainly not doing. I mean, the Ftse's outperforming the rest of the markets here at the moment in terms of being near it, back to its 7 years highs or something like this. Pushing up significantly higher, the Ftse. The DAX looking soft. Sorry, that might have been gold. That was at 7 years high. No, it's not gold. Oil, beg your pardon. Forget my comment on the Ftse there. Scrub that. Looking at the CAC then, same sort of picture here. Just a bit softer. Nowhere near its previous highs at the moment. Potential, but they're much more leveled. And more in line with the S&Ps here. S&Ps, same sort of picture. It's had a few good up days there, but down at the moment. And well, the Nasdaq yesterday selling off. Is that a correlated move towards what we're seeing elsewhere in terms of the crypto side of things? But certainly came off yesterday. There seems quite a good correlation between the two, and a lot of people are looking at it as a key correlation. Certainly seeing it occurring there. And the Dow Jones, well, that's been put in a more solid outlook here. This is, to me, if it's going to reverse today, well, that may just continue being that bit more solid. Looking across Nifty 50, Indian markets here, off this morning then. So this is sort of following the suit of some of these earlier markets, just selling back a little bit, and the S&Ps just following suit really at this stage. Again, they're in this sort of no man's land for me. They're sort of halfway between the highs and the lows. 50% retracements, 61.8 retracements. Are they going to roll over? We'll have to have a look. So yeah, there was quite some sell-offs in the Ftse, and that's probably Ftse Nasdaq, which probably didn't help at all in terms of the Nasdaq being down. But it looks like it's taken the crypto down with it. UK oil looks toppy. Well, they do all look very toppy, John. But as much as these markets, some of these markets, some of them look very toppy, some look very like they're bottoming and whatever else. They will change at some stage for sure. But I mean, it's that they could easily just go and push. The point of least resistance when a market is pushing up is the money's running into it. Now, at some point, yes, it will roll over. But good observation. I mean, just as Western Texas is very toppy, that has broken through, to say, into 7-year highs. They are toppy, but they could push up higher. We're seeing a lot of pressure on energies. They're being bought. It's putting more pressure on the energy market at the moment. So I wouldn't, because they're toppy, I wouldn't look to sell them if that's what you're referring to. At some point, again, lower highs I'm looking for on the oil markets to go short. Otherwise, I'm sort of looking still at buying on the dips and intraday trading if I can on the Western Texas. Okay, I'll leave it there. Actually, I've just done about everything. I wish you a great day. We did look through the cryptos first. That's all right. Just running through in my mind what I've done. There we go. I wish you a great day. I'll catch you in the morning. Bye for now.